Hello and welcome to the show. This week's Failrace versus the community, we would go racing with some B-class Audis. Our opening race at the Hockenheim Full Circuit. Unfortunately, we would have a spinner in turn one that caused some mayhem for any of us further back, while the two leaders were busy fighting the RS5, getting a good run down towards the second corner. However, the RS4, with plenty of grip, would regain the position almost immediately around the outside of that second turn. A good manoeuvre from the estate car to get that lead back. I was expecting the RS5 to come flying back past in a straight line, but that was not the case. These two fairly evenly matched in terms of straight line speed. Behind them, the Audi Quattro would be flying along quite nicely. The leader would ever so slightly miss the hairpin. Nothing too major though, and the RS5 simply not close enough to really be able to capitalise on that little mistake. Meanwhile, the Quattro estate car were busy fighting further back. A little bit further in the pack, there was this group of three cars. In fact, these would remain close for a large amount of the race, learning why the curbs are a dangerous thing to be playing around. They really do launch these vehicles about, or most vehicles about, to be honest, these Hockenheim curbs. Up the inside into turn two, we saw the RS5 try to pull that manoeuvre. At the start, it didn't quite come off. This time, though, it did work for the white Audi, although he hasn't got the greatest of runs off of the corner. Now everyone is fighting back. It's almost three wide on the run down towards the hairpin. The poor blue car very much boxed in, just didn't have anywhere to go to really make the most of his speed, as we're now heavy on the brakes towards the hairpin. The blue car stuck on the outside, goes for the cutback, actually gets a mega cutback. She doesn't quite realise there is going to be a slow car coming off of the turn. All of the speed is immediately lost, and the white car is able to keep hold of the position despite having run a little bit too deep into the hairpin. And when you're fighting in groups like these, that's one of the things that can happen. It's relatively easy to get blocked in, get caught up in traffic when going for various overtakes. It's probably the biggest group on the track as they leave the hairpin. The Audi TT tried to make up a position, the S1 having all sorts of issues across the curves. I've said curbs are pretty damn vicious. Car on the inside is on far too tight a line, is never going to make the corner around there, skids his way past and off the track. The other side, the TT does finally get himself to the inside of the S1, but is going to be stuck having to go the long way around the next corner. The TT is going to give it a try though as he exits the turn. It would be enough to get past, and in fact the black S1 would have been compromised enough that it actually lost a second position as well. Now the white S1 is busy there having a look, trying to find a way past. Not quite room into the hairpin. In fact, the other S1 has a big dive, is not quite going to get that one stopped. Will make the turn and yeah, just about draw alongside, but from that far back you end up compromising both yourself and the other car, and they've both lost a fair bit of ground. The TT can make a little bit of ground. Unfortunately, this race wasn't the most exciting that we've seen. A lot of cars spend a lot of time, just, well, much as you see with the leaders here, running around. You know, you could see vehicles, but not a huge amount going on. Sometimes that is the way that things would go in these races. It would be the RS4 Avant that would go on to take victory ahead of the RS5, with, I believe, the Quattro coming home in third place. Our second race, we would head to the Yas Marina South Circuit. Another track with some vicious curbs to be worrying about. Another track with a rather nasty turn one, as we all have to try and get stopped from a relatively high speed into this section. Though this time we do manage a bit better through this first corner. The car that we're following gets stuck on the outside. You definitely don't want to be stuck out too wide through these opening corners. When everyone is as close as this at the start of the race, you get stuck out wide on some of these turns, and there's just going to be a train of cars finding their way past on the inside. The RS2 here has done a very good job of managing to recover it as we all slow down into the hairpin. A couple of Quattros are busy trying to get involved. It's almost four wide behind them. The blue Quattro wisely backing out of all of that, because it has a lot of Audis trying to fit into a really rather small space. I was, again, running around in the mid-pack, having had a rather low starting position. This race would be the quick-stop race, and seeing the amount of cars that were around and faffing about for position, I figured my best bet would probably be to dive into the pits on lap 1. Only one vehicle ahead of me had opted to do so. A couple of cars behind would also go for this. Try and get me out of traffic, get my car back out into some clean air, run around without having to fight through an entire horde of cars. That was my idea, at least, in all of this. There was plenty more fighting going on, though. You saw the pack of cars that were ahead of me when I dived into the pits, and this is what I was trying to get out of. This RS7 had got a huge amount of straight line speed, not quite so good through the corners, but could use the acceleration, just out-drags the RS4 down a very, very short section of straight, and again, can get to the inside of the Quattro, although the Quattro perhaps a little bit better through the corners, is now slightly compromised. Quattro is going to lose another place to the RS4 as well. And when you're in these battles, as we've said time and time again, you get stuck in traffic, you get out of position, you know, 2 or 3 cars will come flying past and so on. Yeah, the pitching early strategy this time around actually did work out pretty well. This blue Quattro had been running towards the front before coming in on around lap 3 or 4. And you see as he sort of rejoins the race, he's right there with the group of us that had pitted relatively early, as yeah, trying to stay out of that traffic. And we ended up in a little bit of a fight between me and the RS6 and so on, but it wasn't as major as we had stayed out in the full traffic. And while the Quattro did come out right sort of with this group and does push his luck a little bit too much, wheel on the AstroTurf is never a good idea down that section there. Many a car, I see someone in the background having an issue, many a car can have problems trying to get stopped down there. The Quattro would get back out and manage to run away from this little group and keep himself out of trouble. And once again, we had a fairly uneventful race for a lot of the midsection. Again, you could see the vehicles behind, the way that we all did end up getting a bit spread out. The Quattro here would gradually try and catch up to the leaders, and as it came towards the end of the race, would catch to the back of the red Audi ahead, try to get to the inside through these opening slow corners. Actually gets a very, very big slide, but still somehow has enough acceleration to draw up alongside. We're going around the outside of one of the fastest corners on the track. There is not a huge amount of room there to getting overtakes done, but the Quattro would make it stick, and that's actually compromised the vehicle behind and put him into a fight that he'd rather not be in. Our leader would be this Audi RS4. Got to the lead, I think it started on pole, so very near the front, got to the lead early on, could run his own race, stay out of trouble at the front, and that is always very, very helpful. If you can keep your vehicle out of trouble, not get stuck down in battles and so on, that will do you a world of good, pretty much, in these instances. The closest finish of the race, though, would go to further back, card leaving the pit lane on the heading on to his final lap, would come out in a mighty battle with another Quattro and an RS4, trying to fit 3 cars wide into a place that is not exactly the widest. And now we're going to try and go 3 wide into this very, very fast corner. The RS4 is happy to kind of stay on the inside. The red Quattro, though, gets a huge kick of oversteer, and that is not a point that you want to be getting sideways. A little bit of a bump. Not a huge amount you can do when your car is just all sorts of crossed up coming into that braking zone. They do well, though, not to get into more trouble. Now it is just the battle between the RS4 and the yellow Quattro as we head up towards this final turn. So the last real overtaking opportunity. The Quattro tries to dive to the inside, but the bigger state car is more than happy to defend. We have the drag race down towards the line, but again, the RS4 is just quick enough to fend off that Quattro and keep the position. Again, another perhaps not the most exciting of our races, but as I said, it's just sometimes how things can go. Our final race, though, we would head to the Nürburgring GP circuit. I had got a much nicer start this time. I had two fairly anonymous races, finishing sort of around 6th, 7th, 8th place in the opening ones. It was, yeah, I'd had a lot of work to do trying to get through the field. This one, though, much nicer starting spot. Did get a very, very good start as well with my RS2, making my way up into 3rd place and immediately putting 2nd under pressure through these next couple of corners. I knew I could get a very, very nice run down this back straight, and the car ahead had been a little bit wide, just a little too slow going onto this section. And I will take the easy passes when you can get them, most definitely, and that would put me up into 2nd. Once more, big groups of cars further back. This particular RS2 really struggling with a lack of straight line speed, and RS7 would come flying past. There's another white Audi on the outside would come flying past. However, through the corners, it was pretty quick, trying to get to the inside of turn 1 to regain some of them lost positions. But the real difficulty, when you have a car such as this one that makes up all of its sort of lap time through the corners, when you're stuck having to go too wide with slower cars, you end up out of position, you end up being slower through these corners. You can't make the most of your car's strength, and then when you come to, well, the section where your car is weak, like this back straight for example, you get mugged by everything. It is yeah, it's a little unfortunate for this poor RS2, trying desperately to make up the time through the corners. He's just stuck in so much traffic, and when everyone is fighting like this, it is, yeah, quite difficult to make up some of that time, as the RS4 is now going to come flying past. Another Audi lining up to get to the inside, although the RS2 is again happy to try and make it work around the outside. The slidey RS4 ahead of him, he can't quite make that all work. The S1 just spotted the gap and went for it, flying past again. Everything out dragging the RS2. Unfortunately, I think it was an S4 on the outside. Got a wheel on the curb, got spat sideways, and not all of the cars fitted into the chicane, so the RS2 would regain some of those places. I was up in 2nd, trying to chase down an Audi TT. Made my job a little easier, as he makes a mistake coming up the hill. It's a very fast corner, that one. In these cars, certainly in my car, it was a little lift, and that was it. That's all you needed to get up there, and trying to judge that right. You wanted to, of course, be as close to flat out as you could be. The TT, though, getting it a little bit wrong this lap around. That would promote me to 1st. However, that TT was a mighty fast car, and I knew I was going to have to try and defend down this next section. The TT just too fast in a straight line for my RS2. I could keep up, if not go a little faster through the corners, but the TT's straight line speed was very, very impressive, and he would manage to get the move done on the way into the chicane. I was trying to kind of outbrake and get a cutback going on, but the TT was so good under brakes as well. I could carry a little bit more corner speed. You can see on the exit of the final turn there, I could carry a bit better corner speed, but trying to outbrake the TT was quite difficult indeed. The RS7 was making good progress through the field with its fantastic straight line speed, and while that did make kind of passing cars relatively easy down the main start-finish straight, you did have to, of course, be very aware what you've got in straight line speed, you're going to be lacking in the handling department, the way the PI system tends to work on Forza, and certainly it was coming under increasing pressure through these opening corners from the S1. S1 trying to get to the inside. There's not going to be any space for you to get alongside down there, and again, he just can't quite make anything or make any pass stick. You can't quite get alongside, and of course the RS7 going to vanish down the next straight. But once more, can't afford to make a mistake with a car like this. The S1 is always going to be closing very, very quick through this section, but still the RS7 hugs the inside, doesn't do anything stupid, and once more is going to be able to just out-accelerate that S1 as they run down towards the hairpin. Nothing the little Audi behind can really do. Now, I said in the opening races there was sort of a lot of just follow the leader around. That was not the case at all in this one. The packs further back were all shuffling positions. This poor grey S1 being the next victim, having got past on the run up the chicane, was a little bit slowed down, a little bit out of position. That would give the Audi TT a chance to come sweeping around the outside. Meanwhile, behind, one of the purple Audis would get around the outside of a TT as well. There was a lot going on further back. There was an awful lot going on back here with a lot of change of position. There was also plenty going on at the front. I'd once again been given a lead when the TT made a little mistake, ran wide, and I would take any opportunity that I could, and I knew I was going to have to defend with the RS2. If I was going to be able to win this race, I had to try my very hardest to slow that TT down because it was so very, very fast. I would park the RS2 on the apex. There's nothing the TT can do about that, and I have the grip to do this. I have the grip and the sort of confidence in the car. The RS2 was a relatively easy car to drive quickly, in all honesty, and that meant that I could park it exactly where I wanted it, made it as difficult as possible for the TT to find a way past, and that was always going to be my best bet. This silver RS2 was still fighting himself. All sorts of battles. RS4 getting in trouble on the exit of the corner, just kicking up a little bit of dirt. Here comes the purple Audi with just miles of speed, as flying past, but got, of course, now try and get it stopped on the way into the hairpin. The RS2 is to the inside and once more blocked in by a bigger, heavier Audi, not quite being able to carry the corner speed that he wants to. The RS4 is going to outdrag him on the run up the hill. The TT is happy to try and get involved, although the RS4 is going to be a little bit slow through this section. RS2 once more looking for any opportunity he can. The grey S1 has caught back up to this group as they fight for position. The RS2 tries to dive to the inside, realises it's not quite going to work, kind of bails out, but ends up taking a really tight line, and you're very slow off the corner when you do that one, and is going to lose out to the TT once more. A good opportunistic pass from the TT in these battles with this number of cars. That's just the sort of thing that you really had to do. Back to the front, and as we headed on to the final lap, I was still leading the way with the RS2, but I knew where I was likely to be in trouble. And unfortunately for me, I would make things even tougher, as I would just miss the apex running onto this back straight. I'd just run a little too wide. Not an ideal exit from the RS2, and I knew how quick the TT was down here. I can't leave my car in the middle of the road. I know I want to be on the inside for defending into this chicane. TT is more than happy, though, to go for the outside. He's so good under brakes, he can force the point around the outside of the first part. He would stay there alongside, but he's got the opportune line into the final corner. I want to try and go for a cutback with the RS2. I can get a good run off of this corner, but I'm just too far back. I don't have the acceleration to quite challenge the TT. A very, very good pass into that nasty chicane for the TT to claim victory. Little disappointed that I lost it on the final lap, but it was a hell of a race actually out here. A hell of a race for that victory, and third place was ever closer just watching the action unfold. The closest of finishes, though, would go to this Audi Quattro as we round the final corner. Very, very good straight line speed in this particular car, and the S1 was not quite far enough ahead to keep the position as they crossed the line. It's not by much, but the Quattro would take the position. Yeah, first couple of races in this one weren't the best. The Nürburgring round, though, was really rather good fun. These Audis were. It was okay. Probably not my favourite of the racing. My RS2, though, to be fair to it, while the actual races themselves were a little dull, the RS2 actually pretty solid car, I've got to say. I was expecting it to be a little, or sort of these sort of vehicles to be a little bit more difficult to drive and whatnot, but yeah, certainly wasn't the case with mine. There certainly were a fair few fast ones out there as well. But that is going to be it for this video, guys. If you would like to sign up for the next Versus the Community, we are going to be racing on Thursday, the 11th of August. We're going to be using open C-Class cars. So if you want to take part in that, you can go to our forums. There'll be a link in the description. Find the Failrace Versus the Community section, and you can sign up in there. But that's going to be it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.